Okay, so let's jump in. So you can see here the middle section is bookings. Okay, so this is where obviously if you're only using us for bookings, this is where you're going to concentrate your attention. The other sections may not even be unlocked. So we've got the first section here, general. Okay, so that's accessing your booking calendar. Of course, the normal way to access the booking calendar just to hit booking over here from the left-hand navigation panel. This would be probably the fastest way for a member to get to the calendar. Would just be to log in at sportyhq.com, click booking, and it will take them right to their calendar, and they're ready to book from that point. But this is just an admin way to get into it. So if you're on the admin page, then you can jump right to it as well. The block bookings we'll look at once the calendar's set up. Pretty flexible, pretty straightforward, so shouldn't have any issues there. TV mode, self-explanatory. If you've got a TV perhaps down at the courts and you want to have the calendar up so people can see who's playing on what court, what time, that's an option. The next section here is configuration, which is basically what we're going to go through quickly tonight. You essentially start at the top, and by the time you get to the bottom, you should pretty much have a working booking calendar. And in the final section here is reports. I will show you another club, obviously, because I'm not going to have any booking data to show on the visuals or the downloads, but essentially these three here are CSVs that will pull out all the data for your booking system, whether it's to do with individual member bookings, bookings by court, or cancelled bookings. So obviously we don't need to start with reports. Let's jump right into the configuration. And again, this would be if you've got a brand new club profile right out of the box and you've got nothing going on. So let's start there. We'll do a couple of different sports. I know most of the clubs that are watching this will probably just be squash, but we will have some multi-sports. And there is some functionality around treating sports differently. So we'll just set up a couple of different courts. But yeah, we'll only take a minute. Two things here, really. Booking types just gets you to a different page, and booking rates is also just a different page in the configuration. So it's really just speeding up your navigation. But the only two things we're actually doing on this page are add assets and then create group. If you just have squash courts, let's use that as the example, you don't even need to create a group. You can just create add asset, and then however number of courts you've got, you go from there. For the purposes of tonight, because we'll do a squash and we'll do a tennis as an example, we will create groups. So let's just do that very quickly now. We'll do one for squash. All right, and we'll do another one for tennis here. Okay, perfect. And now we're going to create a couple of courts. Okay, so first thing, name. Of course, you can call it whatever you want. I'll keep it nice and simple here, court 1. And do we want to use it with the booking module? If we say no, obviously, we're not going to be looking at the booking calendar today, but it would be enough for, let's say, if you're running a tournament and you just want to tell the auto scheduler that you have 1, 2, or 3 courts, that would be enough for the auto scheduler to then pick up on the court and to be able to use it for that sort of functionality. Obviously, we're looking specifically at the booking calendar today, so we're going to click yes. That will open up, so we've got some additional details to cover here. We'll do squash to start with, so we can just pick the disciplines that are available on the court. Obviously, that's just squash, and we're going to leave the tennis. How far in advance do you want to allow bookings or allow members to make a booking? So we'll just do a standard, which would be 1 week ahead. Obviously, yeah, you can, it's pretty flexible here. You can do it by hours, days, or weeks. So we'll just do 1 week in advance. From midnight, that's pretty standard. Of course, you can set it anytime you like, or you can even treat different assets differently if you want to stagger the times when they become available. Maybe you've got some people looking at midnight to get the busy courts, and to make it more fair, maybe you want to have a morning time too. Most clubs honestly just have a straightforward midnight, to be honest. Hide names on bookings. You may want to do that depending on your privacy sort of settings or comfort level at the club. It's up to you. Calendar border, self-explanatory there, and then allow waitlisting. So waitlisting, essentially, let's say you've got 2 courts and they're both booked at 4 o'clock. If another member wants to come, they can only play at 4. They can join the waitlist. Just same process as you would to go to book the court. You'll just get an option to waitlist yourself. Then you get a notification if one of the courts is cancelled, so you can go and snag it. So we'll say yes for waitlisting. Asset linking, won't go into tonight, but very basically, if you have one asset that is directly tied to the ability to book another asset. An example here might be movable walls for a squash court. Let's say you move it, you've got one of those clubs where you can move the walls and you have an international doubles court, which is wider. That might take out the other courts, right? So you'd be able to link the two courts, call it something like, international doubles. And then if that court is booked, it automatically makes both the court 1 and 2, as an example, unavailable. So not a common one, but the functionality is there if you want. Disclaimer text. Now, there's 3 different places in the booking system where you can display a custom message to your members. Here is one of them, and this is basically at the asset level, right? So depending on whether they pick squash court 1 or tennis court 1 or a gym or whatever it may be that you're setting up, you can have a specific disclaimer that they'll read right before they hit reserve. That's obviously specific to that, to the asset here. And then finally, we can duplicate. So if you're making 5 squash courts, you can obviously speed this up by doing court 2, court 3, court 4 at the exact same moment. Obviously, it does copy because I could have done it there, but it does copy the settings exactly. So you'd only be able to do it if you're setting up the court the exact same way. This is a drag and drop this page. So I've got this court 1 I've now created. I'm just going to move it up into the squash court 1. And I'm just going to quickly run through another court 1, but we'll just do it for tennis this time, so we can see the different sport. So we'll do tennis singles and doubles allowed. Same 1 week in advance. Hide names no. Allow waitlisting yes. Okay, now we'll move that up into tennis. All right, so we've got our 2 courts set up now, and we've got them groups, squash, tennis. Obviously, if you have more courts, so you do the exact same thing and just move them into the group. Next step, we're going to be looking at the booking setup. So this is where we're going to configure the system for, when's the first court available, when's the last court available, and all the ones in between, right? What's that start time where someone can actually go book the court, and how long does that court last? That's basically what I'm going to set up now. So we'll start with squash. Okay, so at the very top, we won't look at this now. I will actually quickly create another court just so we can use this tool. But it essentially just saves you time when you're creating multiple courts. This is the booking setup part. It's done by the day and edit times. And all we're going to do here, and you can see the examples that it's got on the screen. It's just 24-hour clock, and each line has to be the start time of the court. So when were those slots? When do they begin? So I've already got some times here I made earlier. So you can just very simple. I've got the 2 courts here, and then I've got a 6 a.m. start time for both. Squash, as standard, would be 45 minutes. Of course, you can make it whatever you want. And then tennis, we've got set to an hour, just to give it differentiate there. So I'm just going to copy the ones from the squash, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, so now let's finish configuring Monday on the booking calendar. So we can see we've got all our reservation sort of windows here created. First one's available at 6. The last one's available at 8:15. The one thing you do got to finish off telling the system is how long do you want that last reservation? Does it fit perfectly in terms of the time of the club? So we'll just make it easy, and we'll just give it 45 minutes just to keep them all consistent. Okay, now let's take a look at the columns. So like I said earlier, I created 2 membership types. Now you could have as many membership types as you can think of. And of course, you can treat them differently here and in other places as well, which we'll take a look at. But here, basically, we can see the length that we set up. We know that each one is super simple, 45 minutes each window. Again, you could have during the day 45 minutes and then longer or shorter at night if you want to pack more bookings in. It's pretty flexible, so it's up to you. The first column here we're looking at is prime time, also known as peak to many clubs, and in the back end as well. So it's a little confusing terminology, but prime and peak are the same thing. And if we want to make any times peak so that we can, this is mainly related to booking policies, which we'll look at in a second. And that's just how you limit your members. You can limit them to a certain number of bookings per day, per week, per month in total, that sort of thing. But you can do it by prime time and non-prime. So you could treat the day's bookings, let's say, differently from the evening ones if you wanted to. Just looking after your sort of court, utilization and making sure it's fair for the members. We'll keep it simple. We won't do it today, but yeah, if I wanted to make, let's say, 3 p.m. onwards, peak time, prime time, whatever you want to call it, it's just as simple as ticking those boxes. Prime time alternate, we can ignore. That's not functional. And then we've got our 2 membership types. I'll make it easy again, so I will just give them access to all the bookings. So you just hit select all here. You can see all the boxes get ticked automatically. Of course, again, if you want to, let's say you've got a junior membership type and they're not allowed to play in evenings, similar to peak, I guess. you would simply come down here and you'd deselect the boxes that you do not want them to be able to book. So it's that easy. Non-members, again, I've done it just so you can see that there's an option to treat non-members differently, and you can charge them a different amount if you want, that sort of thing. So that's why I've created it as a membership type. I know a lot of clubs would simply just have member, and they can all be treated the same, or you can have as many columns along the top here. Every time you go create a new membership type, let's say adult junior or premium, etc., it just creates another column here. So just bear that in mind. Moving forward, once you've got your calendar set up, if the rules change at your club and now you've got a new membership type that you've introduced at the club, before, you can't just create the membership type and then start assigning it to people and they'll be able to book, because their column here will be empty. So you need to come here and you need to pick the boxes that will allow them into the court. So that's Monday done. We have this option here, this tool, copy these settings to. For most clubs, I imagine it's the same every day. It may be different on the weekends, maybe you have different hours. So in that case, I'm just going to do it easy today. I'm just going to copy it over to all the days. But for example, if your Saturday and Sunday are different, not a problem. So we've just duplicated the Monday now for all the days. As you can see, they're just populating. And then let's say if we wanted to change the hours on a Saturday and Sunday, no problem. We just pop down here to Saturday, edit times, and then we come down here and perhaps, delete some. It's 5:15, let's say it closes at 6 on the weekends. So let's say I'm going to update that one there. And then I can come down to Sunday and I can just copy Saturday because it's the same. So let's just do that, just a bit of variance here. Copy it from Saturday. Okay. So that's the squash court basically set up in terms of what times people can book. Let's do the same very quickly for tennis. Just we've got some different times. So we're going to do quick here. I'm going to pop over to our predetermined times on the spreadsheet here. And then we'll go save. You can see how quickly you can do it. I'll just do this last one 60 minutes, like the rest of them, not 55. I'll leave the prime, and then I'll just allow them to book, and I'll just copy it to the other settings. I know most clubs do have more than one court, so just to see how easy it is to, once you've already got one court set up, you can see how easy it is to create a second one. For squash, we'll do another one. Also, I'm just going to run through this one more time, nice and quickly here. Court 2, squash, 1 week. Yes, and then save. All right, so we'll move that back up into the squash. And then now we can import the settings from another court. So obviously, traditionally, all your squash courts are probably going to be the same sort of configuration for your members. So this tool here at the top, import booking settings. I'm going to import it from court 1. So import, and that should be all I have to do on the page. So that court's now set up already, just based on the exact same settings that we used for court 1. And just took us a few seconds. Okay. So that's the court set up. Let's go back to our club admin page and see what's next for configuration. Okay, global booking options. This is similar to what we look at in a second for the website. The base settings, you'll probably only go through this page once because these don't tend to change. It's more so that you're aware of some of the options that are available to you. But we'll quickly run through, and I guess it's just a case of aligning it with your club policies or how things work now. And then obviously being aware of any additional tools. Maybe you've not been asked a question whether you want to allow this or not allow this before. Obviously, if it's new, then it'll just be a decision that the club has to make. But again, you just go through, same as the last page, I guess, in terms of the configuration of the court, don't change very much. You've seen how easy it is to make the changes. And obviously, you can come back here anytime you like and update these. But again, typically, you just go through once and make sure you're happy. So do we want to enable the booking system? Well, that's what we're going to get to. So we'll say yes. Time format, we'll just leave it as AM, PM. Change it to 24 if you want. And again, you just run through. So do you want to enable booking rates? Well, we're going to look at reservation rates today very quickly. So we'll say yes. The front desk player check-in. This is based on our booking app. When you log in, you can access the calendar to manage bookings, or you can get access to your own personal QR code. It's kind of one of our earlier features, actually. It's a basic check-in feature. that if you had a QR scanner reader set up at your club, let's say at reception, it would be possible, if you're requesting it from your members, for them just to open up the booking app when they come in, scan their QR card, and then there's reporting around, see the fact that when members check in. So it's a little more information. There is a second option where you would we would integrate with a third party. So you can have more options than a QR code. They have all sorts of door access systems, for example. So it is possible to integrate with one of them to provide additional functionality, but this is just a very straightforward check-in based on the QR code that's in the app. Rest here, you just got to decide, do you want to track late cancellations? If you pick yes, you just got to tell the system what you consider a late cancellation to be. Just leave it as no for now. And then the rest, bookings after start time. This is one that I set up non-members as a reason. Allow non-members to book. So we can say yes, no, of course. If they are allowed to book, what privileges do they get? So right now we've got the two set up, and that's why I did it, so that we can differentiate between the two. Let's say you want to treat the non-members differently. This would typically be for the price of the court that they pay, but it may also be, what courts times they can access. So we'll say that they can book, but they're going to get non-member privileges. And again, you can treat them differently with the booking policy that we'll look at in a sec, and that's again how many bookings they can make per day, per week, that type of thing. And allow non-members to see. So for privacy, you might not want them to. Again, that's up to you. Allow past bookings by admins. Again, just make sure you're happy with these. Allow people to view past booking days. This is the second place I mentioned earlier about where you can show a custom message to your members. This is a message at the top of the booking calendar. So whatever view they're using, and there's a few different ones you can toggle between once we've got the calendar set up, there will be a message at the top, maybe some rules around booking or club rules or whatever it is you want to tell them at that point. Who can cancel a booking? Do you want to restrict some court times to admin only? You could also do that with a block booking, I suppose. Last minute bookings, change the color. Show custom message in the booking email. Okay, so this is the third place I was talking about. After they've made the booking, an email is automatically sent to them with confirmation, details of the booking, and iCal download. You can also customize a message to put into that booking. So it's once they've actually got it. Some clubs, for instance, if they tied into a door access system, then that may be the point where they give them the code to access the club, as an example. But until they've booked and paid, maybe they don't get that information. For an example. You can CC booking emails to specific addresses if you want to keep an eye on what's happening at the club in terms of bookings and cancellations. And then finally, online payments. We will say yes to enabling online payment because we'll take a look at it today. And then enable fee sharing. I'll say yes. We may not dive into fee sharing too much today, but essentially it allows a person to book, to pay, and then the person that they've booked with will get an email saying, hey, this person has asked you to share the cost of the court. So let's say it's a 10 euros to book a court. They would basically have a link to pay 5 euros back. So that would typically be off your account balance. And it would just be a top up of 5 euros, let's say, to the member that booked, and obviously 5 euros off the person that was booked onto the court. And then you can also share guest fees. That's more to do with, more popular with tennis when you've got 4 people on the court, and you're paying a guest fee and you want to share that guest fee that you paid with the other members on the court. You can do it. We'll just focus on squash tonight, so we'll just leave that off for ease. So that's global booking options. So we've got the assets set up, we've got the booking setup done, we've got all our questions answered. Got a few more here to go through. Booking reservation types. We've got 3 out of the box. The standard one is playing a game with. That's where you get a search field. You find the other member's name just by typing it in. You've got both of them, the names on the booking, so that when you make it, that's the data that's recorded for that particular booking. Still looking for a player is used by some clubs, not by all. Basically, the difference is very similar to solo practice in that it lets you book a court one person, and it doesn't require you to have a second player name like this playing a game with does. But the difference is still looking for a player has auto cancel rules. So if we go and take a quick look, you can see the different options here. And it's just how long before the court it will auto cancel if the member has not come back to the booking calendar and added in who their opponent is. So it's basically to kind of force, it's kind of for clubs that don't allow solo practice or might not allow solo practice at peak time at night to make sure the courts are fully occupied. But obviously gives that member some flexibility to look, I know I'm going to play at this time. I'm just not sure who I'm going to play yet. So it's up to you if you use it. If you don't want to use it, you come here and you can see all these blocks here where the sports are mentioned. You just have to, each one, you can pick it by sport. You just got to say whether you want it enabled or not. So let's say we don't, we'll just switch these all to no. You can see these additional options, which we'll look at for squash in a second. So they're all closed up. So now we've basically disabled still looking for a player. So when we get to the booking calendar, it won't be an option. For solo practice, let's go in. Let's say it is allowed, but not for tennis. So we'll disable that, but for squash, we'll leave it. The final thing here is show booking length option. So we've set our courts up for 45 minutes. And when a member goes to book, there's going to be a drop-down option for length. Now, it's whether you want them to have a drop-down option. The default will just be 45 minutes, and they won't be able to change it, which is how it's set up right now. If we say yes, as example, and then we go maximum booking length 90 minutes. So now if they go and book a solo practice, for length, they will get a drop-down menu, and it will say 45 or 90, because 1 and 2 bookings, like the core reservations of 45 each, that's all they're allowed before they hit their maximum 90 minutes. So we'll hit save for that. Playing a game with, which is our standard one, we'll say yes for tennis, but we did 60 minutes, so we'll do 2 hours. Right, squash, we'll just stick to the 2 back-to-back bookings that they're allowed. And then tennis will come here and do 2 hours. And that's it. The rest of these are standard out-of-the-box ones that are typically used for block bookings, maintenance, tournament, others. You can see. You can also create your own. Yeah, it's really up to you. Honestly, most probably don't need these. They'd be happy with, let's say, just playing a game with, or perhaps one of the individual booking ones. But you could come up if you want to make the booking process a little simpler. Let's say you don't want to capture any additional information, so it's kind of playing a game with. But there's no search. You don't have to put your opponent in, and you could just have this one option to make it really simple on the calendar. Only available to admins. We'll say no, and then capture additional information. So you can see here it says search for a user and an open text field. So an open text field would be more, and you wouldn't need it for guests because we already support guests. But for example, if you just wanted to collect some additional information about what they were doing or who they were playing with, you could just have an open text field and the person could just type information in, or the search for a user. Now that's obviously very similar to the playing a game with that we have. But yeah, it's up to you whether you want to sort of customize slightly the defaults that we have, or you're just happy with how it is out of the box, and we'll leave that up to you, and you can have a sort of a play and how it looks on the calendar and how it aligns with your booking rules, and you can sort of go from there. You can also set a maximum of how many players on a booking. Of course, if like doubles, you probably have a maximum of 4 on there. But again, booking types wise, we've got the defaults here, the top 3. Coaching would be if your members, if a person's in your database that's been tagged as a coach, they would have the option to book a coaching where they just pull up a member search, and then the reporting is different for the coach. And then these are just the sort of standard defaults out of the box, like block booking types, like more general admin options. All right, so we're happy with our setup now. We've got our playing a game with, we've got a solo practice, we've got we're allowing them to book 2 courts at once, so they can go to 90 minutes or an hour 20 for tennis, but no longer. And let's go back to the club admin. Okay, so basically now we're just at setting prices for courts. I know a lot of clubs don't charge their members, or maybe they just charge for guests. So we'll just take a look at that option now. And then finally, the booking policy, so how we limit them to a certain number of bookings. And then we're about done here for bookings anyway. So reservation rates. So this is pretty flexible. Again, you just got to work your way through the page to make sure it aligns to what it is you want to accomplish here when it comes to charging certain members certain amounts for certain courts. So just take a quick look at the functionality. We're just going to do a simple one here for squash, let's say. So apply to all disciplines. Of course, we can separate it out here with squash or tennis, singles or doubles. You might have a whole bunch of different sports here. So this can be pretty complex. The reservation rates page, you can have as many as you want. So you can treat, like I said, the different courts, the different disciplines, the different members, all this stuff differently. Really just depends on the rules at your club and how many different price points you have for different actions. So we'll just, we'll do a simple one here for squash. So we'll do squash here, apply to everyone. So this would be if you wanted to treat the members, non-members differently, you'd have to create 2 reservation rates, one for all members, and then you come back and do the exact same thing for non-members, and obviously you charge them perhaps a higher price. So we'll just do a simple one here for members. Peak time, we did use it, but we'll just leave it as apply to both. And again, it was prime, non-prime in our back end, so a little bit confusing, but it's the same thing, prime and peak, so we'll just leave that off. Apply to any of the booking types. Again, we've got our defaults here, we've got no custom ones. So it doesn't matter, we're just gonna say it doesn't matter, as long as they're booking the court, they've got to pay a price, doesn't matter what they're doing on it. Assets, okay, well, we're just doing it for squash, so it's only showing us court 1 and court 2, because that's all that we can play squash on. So we don't really need to toggle them both, we'll just leave it as any matching assets. Right? It's a squash only. One more option here, we've got bookings made on any day, which would be typical. You could also treat bookings made on the same day differently. Perhaps that you don't want to charge for any, if you want to classify them as last minute bookings, just to encourage players to fill those courts if they're still open on the day. We'll just leave as bookings made on any day. And then we've got 2 options when it comes to price types. If you caught last week's webinar where we were looking at member plan, we had 2 options. We had recurring billing and we got the fixed. So it's somewhat similar here that we've got 2 separate options in the way that the system's going to figure it out. The price for a fixed amount of time. This is easy for us for squash because we know it's 45 minutes, and let's just say it's €5. If we wanted to, for tennis, for example, as we've got it set for 2 hours, if we want to allow them for tennis, and if we set up the courts, let's say every 30 minutes instead of two lots of 60, when they went to book a court, obviously the start time would be the same, but there would be multiple options in that drop down for length. It'd be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. So if you want to give them that flexibility, you could, but then you can come here, you put in the cost of just the 30 minutes. So let's say it's €3, right? And then the system will do the math for you. So if they pick 60, they'll get charged 6. They pick 90, 9, and so on. Again, we'll keep it easy here with the fixed, the squash, 45 minutes, 5. And then finally, a guest going to pay extra. Again, we've got 2 options. Is it a flat fee or is it based on a base rate? We'll stick to flat fee here just to make it easy. One more question is guest fee categories. Honestly, most clubs would just have a standard guest fee. The only differentiation we really see sometimes would be the difference between an adult guest and a junior guest. So maybe you want to charge the adult more. You can do that. You just click 2 categories, and then obviously you've got to give them different names, adult, junior. So we'll keep it nice and easy here with 1, and we'll just call them guest, and let's charge an extra €5. So for a 45-minute, the rate here is going to charge the squash, members, types, everything, €5, and then if they also choose to bring in a guest, it's an extra 5. Okay, so we set up a reservation rate. Again, you can have as many rates here as you want, depending on how complex your pricing structure is at the club. But for purposes of ease today and the fact that we've got to look at our website in a minute, that's good enough. Refund policy, quickly. We've got a few different options here. Most just have one policy, so let's call it a default and set as default. We would say yes, but you can just see the different options here. And again, you can treat different courts differently, different sports differently if you wanted to. Provide no credit, so whenever they cancel, they're not going to get a refund. Provide a full credit if cancelled before the day of the booking. Full credit no matter what. And then finally, we have the option of a tiered policy. So this might be if they cancel far enough in advance where you're confident, the court's going to get picked up by someone else. Let's say, less than 24 hours before the booking, you want to punish them. So you're going to take a percentage of the cost for them canceling late because you're less likely to fill the court. So if less than 24 hours, you only refund, let's say 50%. if between 24 and let's say 48 hours, that's multiple tiers here, you could give them more of a refund, and then if more than 48 hours until booking, so far enough in advance, maybe you want to give them a full refund. So that's our tier policy. Again, you could set up different ones because you apply them at the court level. Like, so I'm going to go to the squash court now and pick default. So we can just leave that there. It's fine, tiered policy. And then just to see that applied, just go back to assets and courts, edit asset, and now we've got this additional option that we didn't see before, called refund policy, and we can see the one we just created. So now on the squash court here, we've got the default set. So we'll say submit, and then on this one here too, we've got a default. Okay, perfect. So the squash court should be all set up, ready to go now. Finally, we're going to look at the member booking policies. Again, you can have numerous different policies in place here if you want to treat different members differently, and you'll see that when we go and assign the policy in a second, that you can do it to different membership types. So if you want to treat an adult differently from a junior, non-member, of course, or different levels of members at the club that get more bookings allowed per day, per week, etc., you can do it. I'm just going to make it simple here. I'm just going to do one for no limits. Okay, so you can see the defaults here are all set to no limit. The first box we're looking at is peak, again, prime, but maximum daily peak time bookings, maximum weekly, total, and then are they allowed an additional booking? If you are limiting them, let's say I was limiting them to 2 per day, then maybe you want to give them an additional last minute, depending on what you consider last minute, just to improve the court utilization. If there's some courts empty and they're going to be unused, then you might as well give the member an additional one just to make sure the court's got some people on it. So the same thing now again, but we're dealing with the non-peak or non-prime time. And again, you just go through and make sure you're happy with the rules in place here. And now basically forgetting, or if you've not got the peak and non-peak in play, you can just ignore those first 2 sections and you can just jump straight to the total booking rules, because you can do it here by daily. You can do it by total number of bookings allowed. Again, last minute. You can do it by weekly, again, last minute, and you can do it total number of last minute bookings, total number of bookings in a month. So all these sorts of limits you can play with, again, depending, just align it with your club's policy, or think about additional flexibility if you want to try it to solve whatever problem you may be having at the court level. That's this one. Consecutive booking minutes is one. So let's say we've allowed them to play squash and it's up to the 90 minutes, but then there's a way around that, isn't there? Because they can switch from court 1 to court 2 and then book like the next 2 courts on that one, because it's just a booking length as an option. Let's say you've got no limits. You can come here and the consecutive booking minutes, if you set it to 90, would actually stop them with that workaround, like stopping them the same person going to a second court and then booking at the next court, the next 90 minutes or whatever. So essentially they'd have 180 minutes in a row, but they've only made two 90-minute bookings. This would stop them because it blocks them at basically 90 consecutive minutes. That next booking on any of the courts would not be available to them if you got this in place. This one's just when the new policy is maxed out. So when does the limit that you've assigned to them, when does that refresh? When does it go back to 0? On the same day after the booking is held, or the day after the booking is held, that is contributing to their limits. Finally, here we've got some miscellaneous rules. Most of these have just come from various other clubs that have joined their requests to align with the rules that they have existing that we don't quite or didn't quite have at the time. So again, you'll probably just go through this once, make sure you're happy with all the options that are set. Obviously, you can always come back and update them. But yeah, can they make guest bookings during peak time, prime time? Solo practice in question. Can they waitlist themselves? What time? Do you want to disallow edits within a certain time frame of the court? Again, you have to dictate what the times are if you're going to use any of these. Disallow booking cancellation within a certain time frame. It's too close. Maybe you don't want to let them cancel. Allow guest booking to be changed. Can they make multiple bookings at the same time? And then the final one is a little bit more complex. This would be if you had different policies depending on what sport they're playing. So you might want to have a policy for squash, but then if they're also a tennis member and they have a different limit in tennis, then you've got to decide, well, do we want to have two separate policies here? Do we want to have, is it they can book any of squash or tennis a certain number of times? So which way you want to tie sort of two policies together? It's a little bit tricky, but basically if you have one of those multi-sport clubs and you want to treat the members differently or the sports differently, you can here. You just have to set up multiple policies and then decide whether how you're looking to treat the particular one. But yeah, any questions on that? I know some of the club setups do get pretty complex. You can always get in touch with us to help. So that's the, oh, what have I forgotten to do here? There you go. So what you will have to answer every single one of these. And there you go, I missed one. Allow guest booking to be changed. Let's just say yes. Now we hit submit, we should be good. All right, perfect. So final step here, now we've created our no limit membership policy, is just to apply it. So you come here to membership types. As we came earlier, you can see club member, non-member. I'll just deal with club member as we're not going to be doing anything with the non-members anyway. And then there's a couple of things to see here. Number one is policy. That's what we came here to do. That's what we have to do. If you do not assign a policy to the membership type, that membership type will not be able to book. So you must. So let's just do that now quickly. And again, you can see here you're doing it by court, by asset, so you can treat them differently. But that's good enough. And then the other thing you can do is you can differentiate or treat different member types differently based on how far in advance they can book. So if I click yes here for the club member, and this may be a coach, or this may be, you know, a platinum member or whatever, you could treat them differently. So here I could override the default asset setting. So we set it up earlier when we created the asset that you could book 1 week in advance or 7 days that we chose. You could come here and by the court, let's say I want to give them, you know, longer. So let's say 2 weeks, right? Starting at midnight. So if I wanted to treat this member type differently from the next member type, I can do it here. I'll say no. And we've got no limit set. Okay, so we've gone through the configuration section. We'll take a quick look at block bookings, but apart from that, our booking calendar should be active now. We should be able to go take a look at it. And yeah, and then we'll pop into the website builder and we'll see how quick that is to set up and also add in our booking calendar as well. Block bookings, take a quick look. Again, it's pretty straightforward. You literally just have to go through and pick the days and the times that you want the block booking to show, and then also what it is so that people can see on the calendar. So let's put one in. Today's the 25th. Let's put one in 1st of April. I'll just do a simple one, just 1 day. You can make these long and short as you like. But basically what happens, what's the 1st of April is a Tuesday, right? So we're just going to do Tuesday, all day event, yes or no. So let's say we're going to do the squash courts. Let's just say all day. And then we'll do court 1. Category, so you saw these from the reservation type page. There was a league, maintenance, a tournament, and other, and you can create custom ones if you want, but we'll just leave this now as league. And then the description, well, we'll just put team league finals, let's say. Okay, so that's a block booking created. Just a simple one, 1 day, 1 court, and it's booked all day. Now, when you hit save, if you jump straight into the booking calendar, or if you're already on it and you refresh, it's not going to show up instantly. That's only because now that we've created the block booking, that goes into the bookings queue on the back end, and the system will start making the bookings. So it might, depending on how many courts it's got to book out for you, it could be 30 seconds, it could be a couple of minutes, but don't panic. Like once you've created the block booking, it will take place in the background. And if you don't see it right away on the calendar, just wait a minute and refresh and you should. That's basically it. We've looked at the block bookings, the full configuration, how you limit them, how you set them up, how you set the courts up. And yeah, the reporting obviously is going to be pretty bare. I will just switch over because I said these 3 are CSV downloads. So you just get a dump of all the raw data, further analysis, whatever you want to do. The core booking stats report, we're just going to look at different clubs here, a different demo club, just to see what type of information is available to you out of the box. We do have plans to improve some of the reporting to make it more interesting. But at the moment, you can see booking type breakdown by day. So this is those options that you get when you make the booking, right? Bookings by day of the week. And again, you've got a table here and a visual bar chart. Bookings by asset for the different courts you've got. The daily breakdown, yeah, peak versus non-peak, and then last minute if you're tracking it, or last minute cancellations if you're tracking them. Bookings by sport, of course, we just got squash and tennis here, so similar to what we just set up. Bookings by period of day, so you can see what the usage is like, evening versus during the day, afternoon, morning, that sort of stuff, and maybe do something about the difference in usage rates. And then finally, a user breakdown. So you've got 3 CSVs you can download. You've got this on-screen, more visual one. Take screenshots for your AGM meeting, whatever it may be. If there's anything else, then do let us know. We always like to get feedback on where we can improve these sorts of things to make it more useful to the admins. So that's our booking calendar. Let's make sure we've enabled it. Yep, enable the booking system. Yes, we've already gone through this and we're happy with everything. All right. So, okay, so go to booking calendar. Again, it's for the admins just to be able to jump right into it. Club Sporty. I just need to actually let me switch to the member. So I listed Club Sporty. Okay, back to our club profile. Here we are. Okay, so like I said earlier, I added 2 club members now just so we can see user demo and a dummy player profile. So I'm just going to switch to, just so we can see it from a regular member perspective. Just going to switch to the user demo, who's a member of this club. And then we're going to go to, so this is how the member would traditionally do it. If they're not using the app, they would just log in sportyhq.com, click booking, moment of truth. That's not the one we're looking for. That's webinar club here. And there we go. So they're the 2 squash courts we set up. There's the tennis court. We got our different views we can toggle between here. So for example, here. Club Sporty again. Let me just change. So you can be, as you can see here, you can be a member of multiple clubs that use us for bookings. And you just got to use the drop down here to make sure you get to the right club profile. And then we have our 2 squash courts and our tennis court that we've set up. So this is pretty flexible. You can hide those if you want. You could, let's say you're not interested in ever booking tennis, you could just hide the tennis court. You can switch between, the PC view and the mobile view if you want as well. And our original classic one, which looks very different to the new ones, just so you can see it. Really is personal preference. This is the one where the old version, you had to click between the tabs to find a different sport. Again, this is defaulted to a different club profile, but you get the idea. It's just tabs at the top between the squash and the tennis, so there you go. But the newer ones, this is probably our most popular one now, just the horizontal new version. Webinar club. All right, so we'll just make a quick booking here so we can see it in action. We're about to run out of time, so we should be able to get this 8:15 one right at the end of the day. So we can see this is the reservation window now. So we've decided what court we want. This is where one of those messages that you could customize an app would show up. And these are the options, again, that we preset when we set up the asset, right? So we just got squash available in this one. If we picked a tennis, it would be tennis singles or tennis doubles. The reservation type, well, we disabled the playing, looking for a player. So we've only got playing a game with, where you get that search for a player field, which you can see right here. And then, of course, if I switch to solo practice, it just removes that. Either way, you can see down here under payment, it's going to look to charge me the €5 because that's what we set the price of to book a court 45 minutes. These are admin tools, so you can override the booking rules. Let's say you're making a booking for a member. They've already maxed out, but you're allowing it for whatever reason. You just hit yes, and it basically bypasses the membership booking policy that we just set, even though we set up no limit, so don't need to. And then again, for the admin, let's say they've already paid you, or you owe them one, or they paid directly at the club and you're making a booking for them. You can just choose to waive the fees, and then you can see that the amount due is now 0, no longer the €5 that we originally asked the members to pay. So let's make a quick booking here, just so we can see it in action. Again, the share fees, won't go into it tonight, but essentially, Etel, the second member here, will get an email with a link. If they click it, takes them to a window where, similar to this payment window here, and they'll just see amount due, and it'll be €2.50, so that they're paying for 50% of the court. We're not going to see that in action now, so we'll just disable that. Override booking rules, no. Waive fees, no. We will do that now, just so we don't have to enter the credit card and top up. You can see here amount to add. You can do as much as you want here. So if you want to keep a balance for future bookings, let's say you want to do 25 here, obviously we're only going to use 5, you keep 20 for next time. So it prevents you having to enter your credit card each time and pay the €5. You just hold a balance, so for your next bookings are covered. We'll waive the fees for that. So you can see there's nothing needed. You can also see the sponsors down here, right? That just comes from the club admin sponsors section. And there we go. We've got our booking there made at the end. We can see created by participants. We can edit, we can cancel, and we can get further info on the call if there's any comments or descriptions. All right, so that's the booking system set up from scratch. And yeah, like I said, now that the booking's been made, the booker will get an email. We'll have the details of the booking and an iCal download. If you want to add it to your calendar right from the email, you can. And that's that. So now we've got are there any questions on the booking system before we switch over to adding a website?
Just a quick one, Luke.
Yeah.
When I go into block bookings,
yeah,
I'm only seeing 4 categories: league, maintenance, tournament, and other. Is it possible to put in coaching or something in there? Or...
Yes. I guess the default that would work is just to pick other, because the description is what actually shows on the calendar. So you can type in the description, right? But the booking reservation types actually may not be tied in right now, but if you can create additional booking types here, right? So if you want to add more than the defaults, the standard ones that you get out of the box, you can do that. Also just gives you a little more flexible when you're making the bookings, depending on how you do it. But otherwise, at the moment, yeah, you just pick other and then change the description of the block booking.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the booking system. We've got it up and functional. Now we're going to take a look at the website builder.